Hi, investigators. Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy. Without Casey Pine, for episode 126 of Spy Curious, the Friday afternoon weekly news for private, government, corporate investigators in Australia. See you in 30 seconds. So, just in case you missed it this week, there is no Casey Pine. She's gone missing in action. So, it's just me. Thanks very much. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, all right. That'll do. Thank you very much. So, Casey will be back next week, and she said hello, say hello to everybody. Sorry she couldn't be here today. Just unfortunate with school holidays and everything that's happening. So we've got quite a bit of news this week in relation to what's happened around Australia in investigations. But first we're going to do what we normally do and look at our positions vacant. So I better find my positions vacant sign, which was there somewhere. There it is. Right, now I can do our positions vacant. This is what happens when Casey's not here. G'day, George. Great to see you too, mate. Your associate membership should arrive Monday in the mail, buddy, and your coffee mug from last week should arrive in the mail too. G'day, Facebook user. I don't know who you are. It's great to see you. Thanks for saying g'day. It's made me feel really comfortable to have some people watching and being engaged. So good on you. Thanks for that. So I better get into our positions vacant. So let's have a look at what we've got this week. ProCare, they're chasing factual investigators in New South Wales, in all over New South Wales. So get in touch with ProCare. Yes, it's really exciting, George. You have that associate membership. You get a certificate with the associate membership. So you actually get a printed certificate that's signed, and that's where you can show the insurance companies that you're working for who want you to be a member, an active member who's undergoing continuous professional development with an industry association, the Academy of Investigation, Risk and Loss Adjusting Professionals. You'll be able to show them that certificate. And so will 11 other people from last week's program too. So that's something to look forward to in the month, as well as the blind investigator coffee mug. So from Andy, who we saw last week, those of you that won our competition will get the coffee mug I'm holding right now with a cup of tea in it. Okay, back to my positions vacant. I don't get distracted. I never get distracted. OIS Global down in Melbourne with Steve. They're looking for a circumstance factual investigator for work covers claims. Steve's the president of the AISP in Melbourne. Great bloke, Steve. So people, if you're in Melbourne, you're a licensed private investigator, apply for that job. Qantas are looking for a safety investigator. What a great role. You'll be working all around Australia with that one, so that's a great job. TAS at Precise is looking for factual investigators in Victoria and also in New South Wales, so get in touch with TAS. He's always pleased to hear from you, very welcoming person, and he'll be only too happy to speak to you if you show him your Australian Security Academy certificate and let him know that you have your licence and you're ready to start work. For Certificate IV in Government Investigation, people who are studying that, the Department of Justice and Community Safety in Melbourne are looking for an investigations officer, and they're paying up to $113,000. Whenever you see Department of Justice, it's always DOJ. Never go Department of Justice, all right? Don't say that, just say DOJ, and they will think that you speak their language That's great. G'day, Renee. Your coffee mug's on the way and your certificate's on your way. Good to see you. Thanks for saying hi. Experienced security vetting officer for capital recruitment down in Canberra. There's a lot of vetting officer jobs available at the moment. I'll come back to them in a minute. If you want to see where these jobs actually are, you go to what Michael has prepared earlier, our Facebook page. And this is where you see Australian private, invested, corporate and government investigation jobs. So this Facebook page, we curate that, and basically on that page, we put up all the jobs that have been advertised on Seek or Indeed or through websites, LinkedIn, that sort of thing, on that one-stop page where you can see private investigator positions vacant, or you can see government investigator positions vacant, or you can see security vetting positions vacant, all the positions for the qualifications that you get from the sponsors of our program, the Australian Security Academy, and they bring you this every week. So go to that Facebook page. You have to ask to join it. Now, I approve everybody that asks, so I approve that. So ask to join it and see up to 3 years of job vacancies. So with that job vacancies, you can do your research. You're an investigator. You do research. That's what you do. You get answers. So it answers your questions. What jobs are available? Where are they? And you can see that on our one-stop Facebook page. Now, if you see a job here that you like and go, oh, I missed it, it was a live show, well, afterwards you can watch the replay and go to see the Precise Investigations. Tass there wants to speak to you and wants to hear from you because he's got work for you. In fact, you speak to him today, you'll probably be starting work before this time next week. They're very active at Precise at the moment. So over in New South Wales at the Anglican Diocese of Newcastle, they're after an investigations manager there. Now they have a disability support program, aged care program. They have everything. After school programs, all sorts of things like that. And you would be the investigations manager. That's the sort of role where you need a diploma of government investigation, because that's a management role, that one. So that's a great job there. Done OSO. This is the beauty. Cryptocurrency investigators for the Australian Federal Police. So if you're a crypto geek, yeah, Australian Federal Police would like to hear from you and pay you up to $108,000 per annum plus 15.4% superannuation. And they've got these jobs going in Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, all around Australia for crypto investigators. Now you think, where are we going to find one of those? Well, we've got one down in South Australian Private Detectives who does that, and he specialises in it. So if you're a crypto geek or a crypto Greek, what a great job. There it is with the Australian Federal Police. I've done the security vetting officer because there's so many. I put a little video together about that program. So I'll just play that video so you can see what that vetting is all about. Basically, you're working from your home office, checking people who want to go into the Defence Force or immigrate to Australia. All I've got to do is find the video. that's an idea of what you'll be doing if you're doing security vetting for one of the security vetting firms in Australia. Now, if you're interested in that sort of thing, basically, all you got to do is come back tomorrow and watch the replay of this program on our Facebook page, or you could even pop over to the Australian Security Academy's YouTube program and see the replay of this there and see all about that job that they're offering with the government in Canberra. The Nationally Heavy Vehicle Regulator wants a senior investigations officer out of Melbourne. Here's a couple of real beauties. Licensed investigator required in Tasmania for LKA. So if you're down in Hobart and you're a factual investigator, you can take statements off people. LKA want to speak to you. So do Wise Workplace. They've got a job going down in Hobart in Tasmania as well. So Wise Workplace, get in touch with them. If you've got a license and you can take statements off people, get in touch with them at Wise Workplace down in Tassie. Suncorp in Brisbane are looking for a risk and compliance advisor. Whenever you talk to Suncorp, they speak like this: risk and investigations, risk and compliance, risk and everything. So if you want to get a job there in your application, put risk and compliance, right? And risk and investigations. That's the way they talk. A compliance manager is required at Brisbane in risk management. So if you've got a Certificate IV in risk management, get in touch with Yui. Precision Integrity Services in Greater Sydney area are after a licensed private investigator to conduct factual investigations and a bit of surveillance as well, they said in their ad. That ad was on LinkedIn, and you can see the entire full advertisement on our Facebook page. Are you getting it? That's where you go to find these jobs. So they're the people that want to speak to you. There is a lot of work out there, investigations from Hobart to Brisbane right at this very moment. So get studying and get those jobs. This is a beauty over in, not done that, this one's a beauty over in Perth. For the Department of Mines, you'll need a Diploma of Government Investigation and a Certificate IV in Government Investigation for that job. And my job of the week. This is different to our fisheries one from last week where Batman got attacked by a shark. This one is a ranger. In Tasmania, you'll need a Certificate IV in Government Investigation, and you'll be working outdoors, enforcing regulatory compliance in water, animal management, and all sorts of interesting things in Tassie. So what a great opportunity down in Tassie. They're paying up to $86,000 a year for that. You'll have to have a driver's license. You will have to get a firearms license if you haven't got one. So you'll see that job again on our Facebook page. That's where you'll see all about it. So they're just some of the jobs this week. It's not all of them. There's a whole lot of other ones. This one from Kentish in Brisbane. They want you to investigate for them, and they don't even require you to have an investigator's license. I'd be very careful about that. Be very, very careful about that. Might be a great job for a short time. Office of Fair Trading have got issues with training in investigations in Queensland at the moment, and this is the sort of thing they're going to be looking at. Who is even bothering to get a private investigator's license? You should. You shouldn't investigate without one. You're just a stalker otherwise. So there's our YouTube channel that came up by accident. What have we been doing this week at the Australian Security Academy? Well, last week you met Andy Chambers, who spoke to us in our industry association meeting and gave away a whole lot of coffee mugs. Here's the coffee mugs he gave away, and they're the ones that are arriving in people's post boxes next week. So Andy's written a book, and the book is called Problem Solved, The Blind Investigator. We're going to have Andy back on the program later on in next month, and he'll talk all about the progress of his book and what's happening with it for all of those budding authors out there that are interested in that sort of thing. He said it's important to have a bit of fun if you're an investigator, because you're going to be dealing with tragedy quite often. It's worse than a hairdresser, because all they do is listen to other people's problems all day. And so do you as an investigator. People who have lost loved ones, who have been in tragic accidents, who have been in things like that. So it's quite often a great way. And Andy explained, he said, network, build your network, get out there and get recommended by other people. That word of mouth, that'll get around really quickly if you get good service. Andy told us all about that in the meeting last week, which was a continuous professional development meeting for our Air Lab. Now, Andy told us about that. Now, his book is just full of entertaining information. We're not going to give away what's in the book because he wants people to read it and find out for themselves. But one of the things he said was it's important to retain a sense of humour. Now, this week on our social networking at the Australian Security Academy, we let everybody know that we had 126 episodes. You're watching episode 126. Charlie's Angels only had 115 episodes. So how about that? There was lady spies. Do they really exist?
I make 20 bands and then repeat it. Run me like 2 bands, I might just feature. I go to Miami for the weekend. My job is to Fendi with the revenge. My job is to Fendi with the. My job is to Fendi with the. My job is to Fendi with the revenge. You break my heart so clean and
Yeah, they do really exist. So there are lady spies. So that's just us having some fun with that this week. But one of the things we added to some of our social media was a TV program in America that's one of those pay-per-view type programs, and it was written by a guy named Peter Stormare. Now, you've seen him as an actor. He plays a bad guy in a lot of movies. And he's brought out a series that the concept came out in 2014 of bumbling, unlicensed, untrained private investigators in Los Angeles. And they were Swedish. And he called the program Swedish Dicks. That's actually Peter Stormare there. Now, he plays the role of an unlicensed, untrained investigator with a partner in the program. And there's several, Keanu Reeves is in it, which is weird for a big movie star, but he's a friend of Peter's. And they do this program, which the critics have panned because it's one of those things that's done in Swedish. And then it's got dubbed into English because it was made for Sweden laughing at Americans. So it loses a little bit in some parts of it in translation. And it's called Swedish Dicks, Dicks being private dick, private investigator, that sort of thing. But it has, as Andy said, you've got to have some fun. Now, whoever wrote this with him, they had some experience in being a private investigator. So let's have a look at some of the things that are actually real in a funny but silly program that actually happens in private investigation. I'm going to show you a couple of little clips from it. Now, this one, his partner in investigations is named Axel. Now, Axel's got to go and do a pretext saying that he's doing carpet cleaning for some workplace. When you do a pretext, you have to have a false name. He starts off saying his real name and then changes it to a false name in this clip. This is what you would do if you're really stuffed up and you were half asleep as an undercover worker. Just watch it.
Guten Tag. My name is Aximus.
Aximus, what kind of a name is that?
That is German. We do a lot of fucked up things and we have a lot of fucked up names. I am sure that by now you have read the memo about your company hiring a new carpet cleaning company.
I guarantee you, if you're working undercover one day, you will do that. Now, it's happened to me. I was walking along the street, not at work. I was totally off duty, walking along the street. The person was walking towards me the other way. And I'm a TAFE teacher too, don't forget that. So I have a lot of students who I bump into. This person's walking the other way. And I just smiled and said, "Hello, James," and kept walking. Then I realised James was a person that I'd done surveillance on for 6 months, and James didn't know who I was. So you've got to be very, very careful. And that's a real situation that a private investigator finds themselves in. Now, this is one that
No, Lloyd's not doing that shit anymore.
But this is for a good cause.
Lloyd, Ingmar's here, and he wants you to do some hacking.
Yes! Hacking!
Now, I once met the detective, ex-detective, who was probably one of the earliest cybersecurity professionals in the world. He wanted to be that before computers were even in schools. He knew it was coming. He was that computer geek kind of person, like our crypto geeks, and he wanted that to come. Now, what did he do? He wasn't a young kid, but he read kids' books on computers because there was no actual textbooks on computers then. And he really admitted that, and he was proud of the research he did. So whoever wrote this series called Swedish Dicks, they did that too. Now, this one really hit me hard. There's a girl, she's going for a job interview there, and the person interviewing her is asking her a series of questions about what she's going to be doing. And it's a bit hard because the lady's Korean and it goes really fast, but basically the interviewer is saying to the applicant, are you willing to wrap up a dead body in carpet and throw it in the ocean? Let's have a look.
Willing to lift rolled up carpet with the weight of dead human body and throw it in the ocean?
No.
No to being team player.
Wow. Now, why did that hit so hard with me? It hit very hard when I saw that one, as I thought, that is so real. That is just so real. It is weird. And I don't think I put it in. So hang on, I'll just bring it in. And I will show you. Geez, I'm really well prepared. We had an Australian Security Academy graduate student, private investigator, actually wrap up a dead body in a tarpaulin, not carpet, and throw it in the ocean. He committed murder. Jamie Gow was murdered by Roger Rogerson and Glenn McNamara. Glenn McNamara was a licensed private investigator, graduate of the Australian Security Academy. And he did exactly what you just saw in that fictional program in relation to that interview. That's really, really weird. So whoever did write this program called Swedish Dicks, they've done a lot of research and they've consulted with people that basically have an understanding of what goes on in investigations. Here it is again.
Willing to lift rolled up carpet with the weight of dead human body and throw it in the ocean?
No.
No to being team player.
That's really weird, isn't it? G'day, Michelle. How you going? Michelle, your certificate's on the way for your association membership of AirLap, and your coffee mug's on the way as well. So congratulations, Michelle. That should arrive in the mail early next week. And yes, George, Evan would be that crypto Greek. So you're right. Great to see you, Chris. Really good to see you, Michelle. So people know wrapping up dead bodies in carpet and dumping in the ocean. But my word, whoever wrote Swedish Dicks consulted widely with people that knew a little bit about the industry. I was stunned by that, absolutely stunned. So, so a little bit of fun, a little bit of enjoyment. Like I said, the critics panned it as both silly and funny, but they said, yes, it's silly and funny, but it actually works, which is kind of weird. Yes, Chris, it is coffee time, mate. And yours is on the way. It looks like this. And Andy's very happy that you got it. The next thing you'll be ordering is his book, mate. So I've done that. Here we go. That's all right, Michelle. You're a gem and you deserve it. And thank you for your lovely note last week. I hope everything's going well in your new position as a licensed private investigator in New South Wales, and congratulations on achieving that. I was never in doubt with any of our students or our graduate students. So good on you. Hope you enjoy the mug and the certificate's really nice. I quite like that certificate. Really good paper. Very expensive. Really big news down in Melbourne. is about to hit the headlines next week. I'll explain if you're a private investigator, you're really going to be interested in this. When you studied at the Australian Security Academy, your CPP 30619 Certificate III in Investigative Services, the first assessment you did, which you got feedback on, was in relation to the Security Act in the state you live in. That's the overall governing Security Act. Now, in Victoria, that's the Private Security Act 2004. That's the one that you have to comply with down there. So basically, that's the one that you would put in your answer, and that's the one Pat Flynn would give you feedback on. Now, what has happened down in Victoria, it's a replay of this. This happened less than 3 years ago. Hundreds of security guards were banned over alleged accreditation fraud in Victoria. Now, what happened there at that time with this fraud was they had to give their qualifications back to the LRD because all of these people had as a reference the same person who has to have known them for a year, who didn't know them from a year, and that person is in really deep trouble. I'll play you the video on it in a minute. Now, this was 2.5 years ago in Victoria, and it was security guards. So let's have a look at the little video on it to see what was said about it at the time, about the penalty units. This is what you must understand. If you do the wrong thing as a security guard or an investigator, this can affect you. So that was 2.5 years ago, and it's security guards. Now, the shit has hit the fan in Victoria with a Melbourne-based registered training organisation issuing CPP 30619 Certificate III in Investigative Services through an arrangement with a Queensland RTO without approved Victorian Police LRD instructors, without qualified Victorian registered instructors, and without the knowledge of the LRD in relation to it even happening. Now, it was going on since before April 20th, 2020. ASQA, the regulator, were alerted to it in April 2020. They turned a blind eye to it and did absolutely nothing about it. In fact, they blamed the victim of it. Now, what that has done, it has left 4 regulatory authorities: the Victoria Police LRD, the Victoria Police Fraud Squad, the Queensland Office of Fair Trading, and the New South Wales Office of Fair Trading, with a regulatory compliance expensive nightmare for them to find out about what actually happened, how long it went on for, and what penalties are going to apply. Now, if you do the wrong thing, like those security guards there and the man that owes LRD $7 million, and they're going to go after it, right? A penalty unit is now $181.74. It has an interest rate of 10% if you don't pay it. And for every single student, that penalty unit will apply. So if you have 10 students, it's $1,800 or so. If you have 100 students, you're getting up into the $14,000 mark for 1, the Melbourne-based RTO, and 2, the Queensland-based RTO. Now, what they look at the LRD in relation to this is, how do they determine the state of mind of those 2 RTOs? Well, they're organisations. So if in any proceedings for an offence against this Act or the regulations, this is the Private Security Act 2004, it is necessary to establish the state of mind of the body corporate, that's the RTO based in Melbourne and the one based in Brisbane, in relation to the particular conduct. It is sufficient to show that the conduct was engaged by an officer, employee, or agent of the body corporate, that's an RTO there, within the scope of his or her actual apparent authority. The officer, employee, or agent had that state of mind. Now, falsifying documents is what's happened. So they weren't approved. They were issued. There was no training location. There was no training course approved by the LRD. There was no instructor registered with the LRD holding the qualification and a certificate for in training and assessment. So none of that was there. So these are false documents. It's 60 penalty units in the 135 and 40 penalty units in 136. That's 100 penalty units at $181 each per student who was issued that qualification. So this is a massive news in the state of Victoria. There are people down there holding qualifications from delivered and assessed by a registered training organisation with trainers who were not approved by the LRD. They are going to have their qualifications taken off them eventually. Had ASQA done something about it on the 20th of April 2020, when they were alerted to it, instead of turning a blind eye and basically allowing it to happen, in fact, enabling it, this expensive regulatory compliance nightmare for 4 different agencies would never have happened. It's going to be very interesting to see the outcome of this one. This is just as bad as 400 security guards, if not worse. So if the press get hold of it, they'll have a field day panning the Victorian Police about it. But the Victorian Police, they didn't know. It was ASQA did. Victorian Police didn't. So they If you've got your qualifications through the Australian Security Academy, your qualifications are approved by the Victorian Police Licensing Regulation Division, and so are the trainers. And I know, because it cost me a heck of a lot of money to get that approval, there was no workaround plan or shortcut done by any of the qualifications we issued. They were all compliant with what was required by the LRD. But the LRD had no idea that this was going on. And the Chief Commissioner of Police in Victoria now knows. And if you get one thing wrong with them, they will come down on you like a ton of bricks. And the expectation is you comply. It doesn't matter how big your organisation is. And this Melbourne-based RTO is as big as it gets. And it receives a heck of a lot of government funding. And to act unfairly in a competitive, regulated environment like that, it makes you wonder, if that's what they're doing with that one RTO in Brisbane, what are they doing with RTOs in Perth, Adelaide, Hobart, Sydney, Darwin? It's a can of worms. So that's going to be something explosive to watch from the Victorian Police LRD in the future in relation to the licensing of private investigators. Now, how do we know the extent of it and that it was multiple people? There is a registry of private investigators that's kept by the Victorian Police Licensing Regulation Division. And you can do blind searches for people by the name of Michael, Eric, Christine, Agnes, Meredy, whatever, and you can see in those who people are with that name. Now, I did that last Sunday. Now, there will be a lot of people registered there that have just renewed their licence recently in 2020 or 2021, and they got their licence back in, 2003, and this is just a renewal. But there was a whole lot of names there that I'd never heard of. Oh dear, this is multiple accounts of what seriously could be seen as fraud, and it's a jailable offence. Now, what can the LRD or the Victorian Police do about that with an organisation where it's happened in Queensland? Victorian Police Crimes Act 1958 has a section in it that refers to extraterritorial offences. Just because you're over the border doesn't mean you're not safe from this investigation. So, that has been episode 126 of Spy Curious without Casey Pine. Hang on, we'll go without Casey Pine. Casey said g'day to everyone. I'm Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy. I look forward to seeing you with Casey Pine, possibly Pat Flynn, next week. Got to go out in the usual way.
작전 종료. 전원 복귀할 것.
See you next week, investigators. Have a great week investigating. I'm Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy.